Hey everybody, welcome to another episode. This is Elle. I just wanted to tack on a little trigger warning for you for this episode, as some of it will definitely or could definitely trigger you. So just a heads up on that, but I do hope you enjoy this episode and find it as informative as we did. With that, enjoy.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unbreakable with Ellen K. Today we have a really special guest. Her name is Angie Roberts. She is a huge advocate for mental health awareness. And the first thing I want to ask you, Angie, is how did you become so passionate about this cause?
Well, thank you for having me on the show, first of all. I do really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to have you.
I've had mental illness since I was about 12 years old. So I'm 40 now. And we don't talk about it as a society, especially when I was younger. Those things weren't talked about, as much. And now we're getting to where that we talk about it more and more. And I feel like people don't understand mental health. And so that's something that I know about, and it's something I'm very passionate about, is helping other people to understand, and also passionate about helping the people that feel like they're alone or they're scared to come out and even say, I have depression or I have anxiety. People get scared because society says it's all in your head, and you should just take a walk, or you should just change your thinking or something. And sometimes it's just not that easy.
Right.
No.
So our topic today actually is admission to a mental health facility. Angie, how do you know, what are the signs that you're getting to the point where you actually need that kind of help?
Well, the signs, and I'm just going to be just forthright with you. I was in the mental hospital about 3 weeks ago. So I will just say what my signs were. I was very overwhelmed. For weeks and weeks, I was feeling very overwhelmed. My medicine wasn't working right. I was going from 0 to 100, in 2.5 seconds. The big red flag of you need admission to a hospital is when you think, I want to kill myself or I want to die, and you start making the plan, you start writing letters, you start giving stuff away. Any of this stuff is you need help now. That's your big red flag. Especially making a plan. That is part of the diagnosis for being suicidal at the moment, is the plan. So I would say that would be the biggest things. And you can know, like, if you have therapists or your psychiatrist, try and call them when you're starting to feel that overwhelmed, or even starting to feel that feeling of, I just want to die, but you're not making a plan. So
Is that what you did? Did you end up calling? Is that how you started the process?
I had, my Medicaid was a little messed up, so I just knew that by that time. Let me back up just a little bit. When I started the process, I was thinking a lot about that. I just wanted the peace of death, because my mind was just so racing so hard all the time, and it's like I just couldn't get any peace. But I didn't want to. I didn't want to harm myself. I have a toddler, and I have to take care of him, and I have too much to live for. So I knew that wasn't a problem. But when the big red flag came, before that, I had called my doctor and everything, and they had tried to adjust some medicine. But when the big red flag came, I knew it was time to go. So,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be a very scary process, especially your very first time. I've been there more than once, so I knew what to expect. And it can be very, very scary.
Yeah, I would be terrified actually, because not having gone through that experience, I would have a million questions like, what are they going to do? And am I going to be able to talk to people? Will they let me take my medications that I'm on? Will they let me out if I voluntarily go in? Like, all these thoughts would go through my mind. Can you lose your children? Things like
Right.
that.
Well, see, yeah, and that was one of my biggest fears was, well, oh my gosh, if I go in, see, I'm a single mom. Um, my son is almost 3 years old, and I'm a single mom. So I was freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want my son taken away from me. Like, that would just be horrible. But no, if your child is, like my social worker said, it's really up to your social worker. And you have a social worker assigned to you daily. That you have a whole team assigned to you daily, actually. But we'll get more into that later. Um, your social worker really decides that. But as long as when I told her no, he's with a family friend, they're like, oh, okay, no big deal at all. As long as he's there with somebody, they're not. You didn't leave your toddler at home.
Mm-hmm.
You're fine. You're fine.
Yeah, I mean, because you're getting help, so that's got to be a positive.
And the court sees that as a positive. So if you're a single mom and you're worried about oh my gosh, the father of my child can use this against me. Actually, no, he can use you. He can use, if you don't get help, against you more than he can use your fact that you're getting help. Because when you're getting help, you're acknowledging that you need it.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and it's okay. It's okay to go and get help. Like if you were having
Absolutely.
if you were having heart pain, what would you do? You would go to the doctor, right?
Right.
So if you're having mental illness, and it's nothing to really be ashamed of, even though. However, your feeling is valid if that's how you feel about it, because I think society has really gave us that feeling.
Absolutely, which is what people like you are trying to make a difference in overcoming that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just don't want people to feel alone.
That's
I
great.
did for so many years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, so you decide to go in, and at that point, what happened?
Okay, so I decided to go in, and so I can only really, really speak exactly for Michigan. Everybody has their different processes. Sometimes you can go straight into a mental hospital, and sometimes you have to go through an ER. So here they have changed it where you have to go through an ER. So you go to the ER, and it was they had a little. It was kind of I don't want to say nice, but nicer than before when I had been there. They have little rooms for you now. And so the psychiatrist decides if you need to go to the mental hospital or not. And then you see your social worker, and if the doctor says you need to go to the hospital, the social worker comes in and talks to you. And if there's more than one in the area, like in Michigan, where I'm at in Michigan, there's a lot. So she kind of asked me if I had a preference to one that I wanted to go to if they had an open bed. And I did have a preference. So, and she made that happen for me. So
that's great.
Right. So after everything is cleared, and they call in your report to that hospital, you get transferred by ambulance over to the mental hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And so after that, yeah.
What is the process like? Do they go through a series of questions with you to make sure that you're?
Yes, they always go through. They go through yeah, and one of the reason I said that the big red flag is making a plan is because that is their big red flag.
Okay.
They ask you, that's one of their questions. They ask you what's been going on lately, and how are you feeling, and what kind of emotions are you having, and then they ask, are you thinking about committing to? Have you thought about committing suicide? Is what they ask, and then I said yes, and they said, did you have a plan? Yes, and then they want to know what the plan was. So I told them what the plan was. And so they're like, yeah, you are, they were really nice and saying thank you for coming. Yeah, I'm glad that you came in, So they bring you by ambulance to the hospital. And right now, since COVID is going on, they take your temperature, of course. which they have already done at the ER. And sometimes if you have any kind of symptom at the ER, they are going to swab you before you're allowed to go anywhere. So, but I didn't have any symptoms. So I went straight over, and then they took my temperature again. I got up there, and they start right away letting you know who your social worker is, who your nurse is, you know, and who the aides are on the floor. They have these wonderful people that work as mental health aides, and what they do really is they're just there for you. That's pretty much what they do. It's kind of like a CNA, but it's not. You know, it kind of. But
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's wonderful because if you're having an issue, they will walk up and down the halls with you and try to give you coping techniques and good things like that. So so the next thing they do is check your stuff in. And you're not allowed to have cell phones. If you have money, you're not allowed to have cell phones, but they do have pay phones that I don't want to say pay phones. They look like a pay phone. They have phones that they provide that you can call out on so that you are able to talk to your loved ones. And as long as there's not an activity going on, those are, they're open from like a certain time in the morning to a certain time in the evening.
Nice.
And then usually there's visiting hours, I do believe daily, but with COVID, of course, right now, nobody's going in or out like that. So, but normally, yes, you do get to see your people. You can talk to them. So you do get to have that contact with the outside world, which is really, really nice. So they'll go through your stuff and then take your shoelaces, or you just give them your shoes, one or the other. It matters what you want to do. They give you a pair of hospital socks you will walk around in. If you take anything that has a drawstring, like sweatpants or anything, they will take your drawstring, or you can have those pants locked up in something. They don't. What I'm trying to say is, if you have your favorite pair of jogging pants, they'll give you the option whether you want the strings cut out or if you just want them kept. You know what I mean?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then they take you into a room and they ask you all the questions, like, why are you here? What's brought you here? How long have you had these symptoms? And, just normal nursing questions. Another thing they will do is they have to look at your skin. They have to see if there's any cuts, any bruises, anything like that, because they need to know if those were there. If you cut yourself at the hospital, they need to know that wasn't there before.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like that you can't say, right? And it can make you feel like you're losing your control, but you're gonna have to give up a little bit of your control to get better, because that's part of the problem. But you also, a lot of the rules are intact for other people. You may not think that. Let me tell you one thing you can't have in the mental hospital that you would never ever think of. You are not allowed to use tampons, because people would swallow them, inflate, and they would choke.
Oh my God!
Wow.
Something I would have never ever thought of. So a lot of people will be like, "Well, why can't I have that?" Or be upset about not being able to have something. You know what? It's probably some rule because somebody did something that you would have never thought of.
Already did it.
Yeah. And this, and so when you go, even if you go to different hospitals, they have different little rules because they've had to implement things in place, but everything is there for your safety and the safety of other people. And you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it is something where you do give up a little bit of your, freedom, just a little bit. It's not bad though, because you're still HIPAA protected. They will not tell anybody that you were there unless you have signed in to say that that's okay. And you sign those papers that day, of course, the day that you arrive. You do all your wonderful paperwork. And then, I felt my team of nurses was really great. So that was good. So after admission, it matters what time you get there, of what is going on. But they really just let you rest, like after admission and even kind of your first day. Like my nurse told me my first day, you know what, just rest and stay in bed. So that day they're not like really pushing you to do much. But you do see your doctor every day. You see your doctor every day. You talk to your social worker every day. You talk to a nurse every day. And you have these wonderful mental health care workers that walk around, or not walk around necessarily, walk around. They do whatever. They're there for the patients, just for the patients, to help you to understand how to cope with things. They'll walk the halls with you to help get your energy out and try not to help you to have to take extra medications, and trying to teach you how to not have to take your extra medications. I'm not talking about medications that you normally take on a daily basis. Sometimes they give you medications that are PRN, or take as needed, and we're trying not to have to take all those medicines. We have to take enough medicines as it is. So they're really, really helpful, and they're always super nice, and they'll come up and talk to you, or and your nurse. And it's not even just your nurse, like all the nurses there, it seems you can talk to any of them, like and it's okay. Everybody there is everybody, most 99%, I want to say, because you can't say everybody. 99% of people are there to help you get better. They just want you to get better. And also, you only going to be there, the average stay is 5 to 7 days, which you think, oh gosh, I wouldn't stay that long in a physical hospital normally, for physical stuff. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But you got to understand, they're trying to get your medications right, and they're trying to teach you some stuff. And actually, 5 to 7 days is a shorter stay than it was probably 10 years ago when I was there the last time, which was like 2 weeks. So I was there 5 days this time. So in my 5 days, you usually have 3 different activities, which is occupational therapist. You have group therapy every day. And then you'll have like a fun group. Like we used to play games or exercise, exercise class is actually a separate one. Exercise, and then you have the occupational therapy is where you can play games or, whatever they want to do. So it's actually, they're trying to teach you to keep your mind off of things, teach you new things. You get to interact with the people around you, of course, and they have televisions, they have a game room, they have a little, like a sitting room, and there's board games and stuff like that. So you have things to do with other people. So there is times where you have to find something to do, but they also try to keep you extremely busy, so that you're not thinking about how long you're there.
It actually sounds pretty nice.
You get 3 hot meals a day, and the food really isn't that bad. They give you a menu, and you can pick it out what you want. So that's kind of cool too. You get snacks. It's not the Ritz, but it'll do.
Right.
Right. But it's, and normally you see people, I think you ask a question, do you get to take your regular meds? And I think you're probably, were you meaning your,
I have lupus, so, meds like that. Yeah.
Yes. You also, like your first day or your second day, it matters what time you come in. You see a doctor, you see a physical doctor also. So yes, they do put you on those meds.
Okay.
They try to keep you on your regular meds, even if they have to have you sign something and have your doctor say, yes, that's their meds or whatever. My suggestion is to always take in your medicine bottles, because it's your proof that you're on medicine. So
right. Okay.
Always pack that in your bag if you know that this is where you're going.
That's a good idea. Yeah, makes sense.
Right. And they have lots of activities for you to do. So I mean, you're not there to have a blast, of course. I mean, you know what I mean.
You mentioned something about how they sometimes have to change up your meds.
Right.
Is a week enough time? And do you go through withdrawals? Like, how does it feel to be changing your meds in such a short period of time?
It could be hard. It's hard because you do have some of the withdrawals and that kind of stuff, but they do try, to safely to get you to wean off of something, and they may be putting you on something else. They're wanting to make a little tweak in your medication so that you can be okay to go back to your psychiatrist. Your you having a if you get to this point, having a psychiatrist, which you will not leave the hospital without a therapy appointment and a psychiatrist appointment. So
that makes sense.
And 5 to 7 days is not enough time for them to see if the medicine is going to fully work for you, because some medicines don't work for 2 weeks to a month. And so
I was going to say most like antidepressants are like 30 days before they can start saying it's actually work, whether it's working or not, right?
Right. And so what they're there to do is to start the process and to make sure that you're safe. And in those 5 to 7 days, and if you have to stay longer than 5 to 7 days, you have to stay longer. Sometimes that happens. You know what I mean? Sometimes it really matters. But the average stay is 5 to 7 days, which is, I actually think that's probably less than most people think. I don't know for sure. Would you guys think that you would only be there for a week, or do you think that you would be there for a longer period of time?
I think you would be there for like a month. Honestly, that's what I would think. Yeah.
Right. So, no. You also ask a question: if you sign in voluntary, can you just leave? I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I know this is all up to a doctor. Really. Right. It's all up to a doctor. If he says, you know what, you're okay, and I think you can leave, they would do that. If not, now people will get very upset and they will want to leave, but they're not healthy and they cannot leave because they are a harm to themselves or someone else. If they think that, they're going to go ahead and call the courts and get you on a voluntary hold. That involuntary hold. But that is only for your safety. And for safety, yes, this would be something that is, you are not in your mind. You are not making rational decisions. You want to hurt yourself or you want to hurt somebody else. You are not safe. And later on, I think that you would be glad that they did what they did, because it, probably saved a life.
At least one, right?
Right. Definitely. So, exiting the hospital, really, your exiting is, they give you some meds. They usually give you 2 weeks worth of meds. Like, they usually hand you the meds, is what I'm trying to say. Like, you don't even have to go get them from the pharmacy. They give you 2 weeks worth of meds. Yeah, so that that's one less thing you got to worry about, right? Like, I don't have a car, so that would be one thing I would have to be worrying about. And if you didn't have money right then or whatever. So you've got 2 weeks, and they've already set you up with your doctor for that 2 weeks. You will see a doctor within that 2 weeks, so you won't have to worry about that. And then come home, and you just try to focus on what they've taught you. And make sure you go to your therapy appointments, and make sure you go to your doctor appointments or your psychiatrist appointments, because it's so important to take your medicines. I can't stress. I have been that person that has went off my medicines because, I feel better now. I can handle this. I got this. I can do this all by myself. I cannot do this all by myself without medication or without a support group. A support group. I can't do it. I can't do it. It's too much. And if you keep trying to do it that way, you're going to keep ending up in the hospital. And I know that because I was also that person. I'm just stubborn, y'all. I
think we all are. It's just the different levels.
Well, I know a lot of people do that. A lot of people do that. Like they feel better.
Right.
And it's like with any medication, you're like, I feel better. I
Yeah.
don't have to finish my antibiotic. Like it's kind of like in us to just stop taking it once we feel better. Yeah.
And then sometimes I would just feel so overwhelmed because I'm taking how many pills a day? Oh my gosh, I'm just so tired of taking all these pills. But if I know now, if I don't take those pills, there's consequences, and I lose. Let's see, I was very severely depressed for a long, long time, at least a year, like of being just so feeling like I just didn't want to live. And that's not good, not necessarily. I'm like, well, I have to be alive, but I just don't really want to be, and I think people out there can also relate to that,
I can definitely relate to that. Yeah.
Right. And sometimes you get that feeling every now and then. Sometimes you can just get that feeling all the time. And then that's really a red flag that you need to see a psychiatrist. You know what I mean? You don't need to go into the mental hospital yet, but you need to see your doctor. You need to talk to your doctor, a regular doctor or a psychiatrist, whatever you feel most comfortable with. Talk to somebody, talk to a friend, talk to anybody, talk to somebody, and let somebody help you.
Yeah, because I think one of the dangers of depression is that people tend to isolate. They believe that, they believe that people are better off without them. So it is a dangerous position to be in, because when you should be reaching out is when you're feeling the most like you want to withdraw, really, like a lot. So it's
definitely you don't want to be a burden. You don't want to bother people. You don't want to. So it makes you. Anxiety is such a liar. Anxiety.
Oh my word, isn't it?
It will have you laying in bed for days just lying to you, and it just lying to you. So I just encourage anybody, if you feel even depressed, or you're starting to feel anxious, or you have issues with PTSD or any kind of mental illness, just seek help, please. Just even if you talk to a friend, ask a friend to go with you to the doctor, however you need to go, just please get help, because you can live such a better life than you feel like you can live right now. I promise you. I promise you. I promise you.
That is really great advice, Angie. And
very, very good.
We were so happy to have you come on, and hopefully you'll come on again and talk some more about mental health issues, because I know how passionate you are about this, and
we enjoyed it immensely.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I would love to come back, and thank y'all so much for having me.
I'm so glad that Angie came to talk to us, because it's one thing to hear about a situation from somebody you don't know, read it online or whatever, but then to know somebody, I know Angie really well, and she is such a strong individual. And, for her to step up and say, hey, I needed this help, I went to get it, and this is what it's like, I think it helps me immensely, and I hope it helps other people too.
It was absolutely wonderful. It's very, very, very informative.
But I also know that it's probably going to trigger some people too, because I just listening to her brought up so many feelings. What about you, Al? How are you feeling right now?
Funny you should ask. I didn't even realize I had been triggered when I was listening to it, but afterwards, it became very obvious. There was a lot of memories and correlation, similarities, been there kind of thing. Not to the extent where I've had to go to a hospital, but I've had those feelings. I've had those, stuff like that. So it was definitely a triggers I was not expecting.
Mm-hmm.
So the last couple of days of, as you know, have been pretty rough. So
yeah, just so people know, we listen to the episode when we have a guest on. We usually listen to it for a bit, marinate on it, and then we come back and record our part of it. And it sat with us pretty heavy. And for me, it brought up a lot of feelings of when was in a really dark place and really knew that I needed to get help, but was really scared to do it. And a lot of it was like, I didn't know what it would be like if I was locked up in a hospital. I didn't know how that would impact my family. But I was at the place that, like Angie was talking about, there are certain things where if you're starting to feel a certain way and you're making a plan and you're doing all of this stuff, which I was doing at the time, it's when you know that you need to get help. And luckily for me, I had a referral to a psychiatrist. So when it got to that point, I got really scared. And that's finally what got me to the psychiatrist's office.
I'm glad you finally went though.
But I will be honest that I was lucky that I was still here to do that. And I probably should have gone to the hospital on the 72-hour hold, but I was just really scared to do that. And so, now that Angie's story is out there, hopefully it will help somebody else.
Absolutely.
Because the problem with it, and I just want to say this, the problem with let's suicide, for example, we think like mental health issues have such a stigma. That has got to be the worst one. Like nobody wants to admit that they're feeling that way. Nobody wants to admit that they're having a plan. I remember sitting there talking to a doctor and they're like, "You're really depressed?" And I said, "Yeah." "Do you have a plan?" And I'm thinking in my head, "Yep." And I'm like, "No," because if you say yes, they're going to lock you feel like they're going to lock you up. Like you're in this situation where you're like, and how are you going to do your plan if you're locked? It's like this, your mind plays tricks on you and lies to you. And that's why it's so scary, because you can't even trust yourself. And so that makes it hard to trust others and to really know what the right thing to do is. So I think that Angie, being such a strong advocate for people who are in that situation to go and get some help, is really powerful, because we do have those resources. They're not ideal, but if they keep you alive and they get you the right treatment, then they've done their job,
Right. So the question of the week this week is, how do you feel about certain people pushing Plaquenil for COVID treatment?
Yeah, and leaving tons of lupus patients with no medication. That really upset me, because if you just go off medication like that, first of all, any medication, when you have lupus, you go into a flare. So many people couldn't get their medication. They were going into a flare. Their organs were being attacked, usually kidneys. They were getting really sick. And the only way to combat it is to go back on their medication. I mean, there is prednisone. There are steroids that you can take to kind of quiet things down, but it's cruel to take an entire group off their medication for something that some people endorsed because it might work. And the other thing is, this medication is super toxic. So if you take too much of it, and people did, you will die from it. It's that simple. You have to go up on it slowly. And of course, nobody told anybody that either. So it's extremely irresponsible and extremely cruel to lupus patients. They don't have a lot of options to begin with.
I know you and some others that have, lupus, and I heard about it, and I'm just, how is this right? How is this fair? And then, of course, where's the proof that it even does do what they're saying it does? Because I haven't seen that yet either.
Well, it's funny because they were like, "Hey, lupus patients who are on it, are any of you getting COVID?" And of course, yes, they were. So if it works so great, then how come people with lupus are getting the same virus? I mean, seriously.
Yeah, well, someone did retort to that, and they said, well, you have to take a higher dosage for the COVID than you do for lupus. And I'm like, that does not even make sense in my brain. But okay, moving on.
No, because there's only a certain amount you're allowed to take in general before it's toxic and you can die. So There's only the highest dose is what a lot of lupus patients are already on. So that whoever that person was who said that is not very knowledgeable and is obviously just believing what the people who recommend the medication are spouting off as, what is true.
Facts.
And it's funny because, because nobody's using it anymore. Now they're saying it's ibuprofen, which is so funny.
Oh my gosh, that's hysterical, isn't it?
It is, because do you remember when they first came out with this whole thing and they told us that ibuprofen was bad to take? Do you remember that? And here we are. Now it's the cure. So now apparently ibuprofen companies are going to make tons of money. So congratulations to you.
Well, which is funny though, because I do take ibuprofen on a regular basis, and so does my roommate. So I'm like, well, maybe that's why we didn't get COVID.
Right? You never know. I don't know. If you haven't been able to test it, don't go telling a bunch of people it works. I mean, seriously, this is so irresponsible.
It really, the doctors and scientists who are actually working with this stuff, those are the ones I'm going to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
Just they got the experience and they actually know what's going on. So,
That's right.
trying to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So, okay, what is the topic for next week?
Next week, this is so much fun and I can't wait to do it.
I'm so excited. Yeah.
We are going to do a tribute to Pride Month. So, yay!
Yay!
And, I hope maybe somebody out there gives us some questions or something that they would like to hear us talk about when it comes to this. But it is Pride Month, and we didn't let the month to go by without doing something. So I'm really looking forward to that.
I am as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, final thoughts.
So we did talk about a lot of difficult things today, and suicide came up quite a few times. So for the final thought today, I just want you to know that there is a place to get help. If you don't want to go to your local hospital, you can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-8255. And you're not alone. Their help, it's confidential. It's available for free. They will be there to talk to you and help you through whatever crisis you're going through. You can always call 911. And again, you can go to your local hospital. Depending on your state, they usually can find a psychiatrist that works in the hospital on the floor or a social worker, and they will come and talk to you. There is no reason to fear it. It's there to help you.
Absolutely. They want to help you. They want to help you.
Yeah. And with that,
just remember, no matter what, you're not alone.
You're not alone. And we'll see you next time.
Week.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
We hope that you've enjoyed this episode of Unbreakable. If you'd like to connect with us, we've made it easier. We are now a part of Anchor, so you can find us at anchor.fm/unbreakable. There you can find different ways that you can listen, and you can also find links to our social media pages. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So there's lots of ways that you can connect with us, ask us your questions that we might use on our podcast, and just say hi. Elle and I would both love to hear from you. Take care.